No, ownership. I'm only partly to blame. All my children had a great relationship with me until the divorces.
So 18 kids, right?
Yes, and I had a great relationship
many
with my
wives?
children. There were 4. There is 1.
Okay.
Okay. So when the divorces happened, the children were the victims of the divorce, and they had to pick sides, and they had a closer relationship because of polygamy to their mothers.
Hey besties, welcome back to my channel. So, it was around 8:30 this morning when it suddenly hit me. Kody is a liar. Just kidding. I've honestly known that for as long as I've been covering Kody Brown. But with the Special Forces finale airing this week, things are heating up again. Kody was in New York yesterday, apparently doing press, and he sat down with the Fox affiliate there, whatever channel that is, for a morning show interview. And instead of just talking about the finale, they questioned him about the things that surfaced during the show and how those moments challenged him, right? They asked him what was harder for him, the physical part or the mental part, and he said the mental aspect was way more difficult. Then they rolled that clip of Kody getting absolutely grilled by the drill sergeants about how he acted in his marriages, how he handled those divorces, and how he refused to take responsibility for the fallout within his family. And if you remember, because we talked about this a couple weeks ago, Kody sat there crying and crying on the show, acting as if he had this big breakthrough. He claimed he was taking ownership, and the only reason he didn't admit he was wrong sooner was because he hates admitting he's wrong. Let me remind you of that clip. Are you taking ownership right now? My failures were because I didn't know what it meant to be a good dad and husband, and I thought I did. I really believed I did, but I misunderstood, and I messed up in so many ways. And I hated being blamed for it, and because of that, I resisted taking ownership. That resistance, that desire not to be blamed, it's a very adolescent way of seeing things. I'll take that. So, remember when I said a couple weeks back that I didn't believe a single word coming out of his mouth? I said then that those tears felt performative, like he was using them to manipulate the situation. He was making excuses, saying he didn't understand how to be a father, saying he didn't like being wrong, and that's why he behaved the way he did. And sure, maybe there's a tiny grain of truth in that. I actually do believe he hates being wrong. Kody is the type of guy who completely falls apart if he has to be vulnerable. If there's even a crack in his tough guy persona, the persona where he sees himself as super masculine, hyper-competent, the ultimate alpha, it crushes his ego. It chips away at the image he's built of himself as this strong, flawless leader. But the truth is, he's a pathological liar. He reminds me so much of other men who lie compulsively, the kind we see everywhere. And honestly, he embodies so many narcissistic traits. So when I first saw that episode, I immediately thought he was lying. There was just no universe where he suddenly turned into a man ready to change or to take actual accountability. I said then, and I stand by it, if Kody were taking real responsibility, he would be working to repair things with his kids. He would have the maturity to see that he played the primary role. He would stop pretending the blame is evenly shared. Because when it comes to children, the responsibility is not equal. He was the parent. They were the kids. His choices shaped everything. I knew he wasn't telling the truth. And then yesterday, in this New York interview with these 2 very kind, very patient hosts, he outright admits he lied. He literally confesses that he lied to the DSs about his role. And then, right on cue, he slips back into his usual talking points, insisting none of it was actually his fault. He says the kids were the victims of divorce, and that they had to pick a side, and naturally they chose their mothers because polygamy. So instead of acknowledging his own actions or owning his role in the fallout, he blames the entire system. And sure, yes, polygamy creates dynamics that complicate parent-child relationships. That's true. But it's also Kody's behavior that damaged those relationships. How he treated his kids, how he prioritized wives over children, how he dismissed them when they needed emotional support. If you treat your kids poorly, if you never show genuine care, if you see them more as extensions of yourself or props in your story rather than actual people, they are absolutely not going to stay close to you. And if you belittle them, insult them, or call them names, why would they want to choose you? But Kody refuses to take accountability. So here's what he tells the interviewers, and I genuinely cannot believe he said this out loud. We have footage of him insisting, I take accountability. And then he goes on this show and basically announces, actually, no, I don't. He says, there was just this natural shift where the kids moved away from me. And that hurt me. I was doing my best through the whole situation, but things got really toxic because every flaw and fault we had was being pointed out by someone else on the show. So now we're back to the kids drifted away because of polygamy. The show caused everything to become toxic. People expressing their own experiences is apparently the problem. The irony here is enormous. These people lived under Kody's control for years, literally doing whatever he wanted while he controlled all the money, and they finally got the chance to voice their truth. They stopped covering for him. They stopped pretending he was this great husband and father. They opened up about the way he treated them. And he hates hearing it. For years, he was able to manage the narrative on that show. He controlled what was said and how things were framed. But once the truth came out, he lost that control. And honestly, that's exactly what he's revealing here without even realizing it. What I keep hearing is that because of the show, they were finally able to open up about what really happened, and he couldn't stand listening to it. He didn't want to hear it, and he definitely didn't want to be held accountable for any of it. He didn't like hearing the truth about what went down, the same truth we all watched unfold with our own eyes. And honestly, if you're just going to sit there blaming the show for everything and complaining that you don't like what's said on the show, then why keep filming? If it's causing this much pain, this much emotional distance, if it's harming your family and damaging all your relationships, maybe the solution is simple. Stop doing reality TV. Maybe stop putting every bit of drama on national television. There's actually an easy way out. Just don't do the show. I'm sure a lot of the adult kids would be stunned if they finally walked away, but they won't. And that's why this becomes yet another distraction tactic. And it only goes downhill from here. And then as they were leaving, he goes, "We were both responsible." But then he starts explaining how he was in this tough, military-type environment with Rudy and Billy, and he felt the only military thing to do was take full responsibility. In his words, if you're partly responsible, then you're fully responsible. It's supposedly about ownership. So he walked in saying, "Yeah, I was the problem. I was the one who messed up." But in reality, he claims the blame is supposed to be shared with the ex-wives. This is such a bizarre way to dodge the question, because if you watch that Special Forces episode, they were talking specifically about how he handled his relationships with his kids. It was about his duty as a father, his job to step up and take ownership. And here he is twisting things again, saying, "Well, no, I was just saying that." He admits he only said those things because he was in a military situation, so he had to pretend to take responsibility, even though he wasn't actually being honest. So he basically confesses that he lied to those guys just to give them the answer he thought they wanted so he could get through the moment, not because he sincerely meant any of it. Meaning, Kody is literally admitting that he walks into situations, tells people whatever he thinks will get him out of trouble, and then walks away without meaning a single word of it. He lies, and then he turns around and flips the blame back onto everyone else. The DS's conversation was all about his role as a parent, right? And then he starts dragging the women into it, talking about ownership. Ownership of what? What is he even referring to? Does he mean the kind of ownership where they lived under his control, under his authority? How can anyone have an equal partnership when they're in a submissive, subservient position with no real power? How can a woman take ownership of anything when she's trapped in a dynamic where he dictates every part of her life? The only person at fault here is Kody. If the women stayed because their belief system kept them tied to an abusive marriage and an abusive environment, that's not on them. It takes years, sometimes decades, for victims to leave abusive partners. The cycle of abuse and Kody's manipulative behavior is what held them there. Their indoctrination is what kept them stuck. The only one responsible for abuse is the abuser. And blaming a victim for the abuse they endured or for speaking about the abuse they survived is absolutely ridiculous. Then comes the claim from one of the wives, saying he tried to force her to sign an NDA. And when he's asked about it, he responds with, "That's so crazy." No, that was just something a legal representative, a lawyer, told us we should do. It was just part of a business matter going on. It wasn't about the show. And then he acts like everything was just misunderstood. He says the only issue was that they were only communicating through lawyers at the time. But I speak Kody fluently. And when Kody says something is not about something, it means it absolutely is about that thing. So when he claims this NDA was just some random suggestion from a lawyer, and he emphasizes that word so strangely and insists it wasn't about the show, only about business or real estate, that's when you know it was about the show. I've said this over and over the past few weeks. There is absolutely no reason for an NDA regarding real estate because all property documents are public. Every single document related to the sale is filed with the county. You, me, anyone can go online to Coconino County and see exactly how everything was divided. We can see when everyone signed. We can confirm whether things were done when they claimed they were done on the show. And we already proved Kody and Robin lied on camera, pretending Mary delayed the process, when it was actually Robin refusing to sign because of this NDA. They wanted Mary to sign an NDA, she refused. And yet he tries to argue it was about real estate. There is no way you can have an NDA for something that is a matter of public record. If anything, the only reason for an NDA would be if the negotiations included something sketchy, like, I'll pay you back the money you gave me for Robin's house. Something he wouldn't want exposed publicly. Because if Mary revealed something like that, it could expose fraud. And yes, technically lawyers are not supposed to participate in fraudulent behavior, but we all know this happens constantly. We saw it repeatedly over the past year covering the Blake Lively case. We've seen it all over the news, lately with everything going on in the world. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone specifically, but it's not impossible. But when Kody says it had nothing to do with the show, that means it absolutely did have everything to do with the show. Why else force an NDA? In the same interview, he even said the reason things blew up and got toxic is because people were blaming him and he couldn't handle the criticism. He says he exploded because he didn't like the feedback. That's not a real excuse. Everyone has emotions, but adults have the ability to regulate their reactions. You don't have to lash out. I mean, I get angry about things too. The last few days I've been furious about what's happening in the Epstein case. Watching how survivors are being treated has been heartbreaking. I've been following it closely for months. My husband and I have had so many conversations about it behind the scenes, and yes, I get heated. My voice escalates. We aren't yelling at each other, but we're both just deeply upset for these women. And that's understandable, that's normal, but it's entirely different from exploding at people and blaming them for holding you accountable. But for him to not hear what he wants from someone and then immediately blow up, start shouting, throw a tantrum, and then go on reality TV and smear those same people? And then on top of that, he's perfectly fine pushing his own narrative, as long as the version he puts out is the one the public accepts. That's all he cares about. You know, right up until the moment they all walked away, they backed him completely. They praised him, protected him, tiptoed around him, and never publicly said anything too negative. Sure, maybe they'd mutter things quietly, or vent their frustrations in small ways, but it was nothing compared to what came out once Christine and Janelle started pulling away and everything began unraveling. That's when the dam broke. That's when they finally said, "We're not covering for you anymore." And Kody hates that they stopped shielding him. What Kody is really saying here is that they revealed who he truly is, that the behavior we're seeing now is how he has always acted. He's basically admitting he's explosive, but instead of accepting responsibility, he pushes the blame back onto them. He's also admitting that he didn't take accountability for what happened with his kids. He only pretended to on the show because he didn't want to deal with criticism. He needed an exit strategy, so he manipulated his way out of the conversation. Now, honestly, the best part of this whole interview was Kurt Menefee. And I only know Kurt from the NFL Sunday morning show on Fox. My husband and I watch it all the time, and he's hilarious. But at the end of the interview, he says something like, "Well, it was interesting to get to know you," or "It was interesting to meet you." And you could clearly tell that Kurt was thinking, "Who is this guy? What a strange man." And that is exactly the vibe people get around him. Kody even admits that he annoyed his castmates. He said he called Randall Cobb by the wrong name for the entire duration of filming. Then in this interview, he calls Sean and Andrew East, Sean and Andrew West. And then he laughs it off, saying, "I can't remember names. I do that all the time. I've just got a big mouth. I don't stop talking. Even when people don't like it, I just keep running my mouth because that's just me. LOL." And Kurt responds like, "Oh, okay. Bye, Kody." So basically, when Kody is out in the real world, people think he's odd. Just so we're all clear and on the same page here. So what do you think about all of this? Are you shocked to see Kody lying? Or are you not shocked at all? Are you sitting there saying, "Come on, this is classic Kody Brown behavior. This is exactly who he's always been"? Because honestly, we've been watching this play out for years, and none of us are surprised. And what do you think about Kody outright confessing he lied? Do you even think he realizes he admitted that? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you so much for watching. Bye, besties.